Hey everyone, I'm Maddie. I'm a second year currently enrolled in UCI for psychology
Hey, I'm Marissa. I'm a third year enrolled at UCI.
major.
Oh, film media studies major.
Today we are joined with our guest speaker, Tom Andreola. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us today, given it's a holiday. Could you give us a little introduction about yourself?
Yep, sure. So, as you said, my name is Tom Andriola. My role at UCI is I'm the Vice Chancellor for Technology and Data and Chief Digital Officer, which means I get to have a lot of fun with everything that we do at the university with technology, which also now includes AI. And so I've been having a lot of fun with that. My background, I was actually trained, did my education in engineering, but very quickly in my career got involved in technology, and it's provided me a ton of opportunities to do different things in different parts of the world. And now I'm at UCI doing it.
That sounds amazing. I would love to ask you a little bit about, go into depth about your experiences when it comes to AI and your experiences postgraduate school or undergrad and how life was like outside of college. Did you know immediately what industry you wanted to go into?
Yeah, wow. First of all, that's a long time ago, for me. But I can tell you what's similar. There's a lot of things that are really similar, right? So I think one, you go, you get an education, and you gain a lot of content, and they give you some skills. And then when you start your career, what you realize is you have to learn how to apply what you learned, and then you figure out the rest. And someone really early in my career, basically shared with me that, you know, 80% of the jobs that I'll have in my career don't exist yet. And that was a really good thing to hear early in my career because it kind of, in some ways, took pressure off to know exactly what I want to do. It's like, how could I know what I wanted to do if a lot of it hasn't been invented yet? And it turned out to be very accurate. And I think for today's students, that also is very much the same. I think, jobs are going to change a lot. What UCI is going to give you is an opportunity to learn and learn how to learn because it's constantly going to be changing. And so I think that's in terms when I talk to students, it's about look, get your basis here, have some passions and tap into them, but be very open to kind of learn new things. Because even if you're really good at doing something today, the chances are 5 years from now, even the same thing will be done a lot different. And I think that's what my career has been. It's been a lot of people say, like, how did you find the career opportunities? I'm like, well, one, I worked hard, did a good job when I knew what the job was. And by impressing people, they would want to bring you into the next opportunity. And I just kept saying yes. They're like, hey, would you like to go work in Europe? And I said yes. I didn't even know what the job was. I just kind of was open-minded for new opportunities because I knew opportunities were going to be exciting, opportunities to learn and to become, let's say, get my name out there and be well known. And that just has led me to have lots of really, really cool things that I've had a chance to do in my career, and it's been great. And now the fun part is I get to come back to UCI and talk to students like yourselves about, your world's going to be similar. Matter of fact, it's going to be similar, except it's going to move a lot faster than it did for me.
Thank you for that. That must be very relieving for a lot of students because personally, I'm enrolled in psychology, but I really want to get into business. So,
Now that we have heard about your thoughts on career life, what were some major pivotal points in your career and maybe even a challenge that happened?
Yeah, I could think of lots of them, and I try to just pick one that's like really, really good for for students. One is I think learning how to be quiet and listen early in my career was really good. It served me really well. I think sometimes people, they expect you to know the answer, and I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to always like know the answer in situations. And I think actually learning how to ask good questions is more important than knowing the answers. Not even just when you're early in your career, even at my stage, I spend a lot of times asking groups that I work with, are we asking ourselves the right question to figure out the problem we're trying to solve? And in many cases, we haven't thought about really, is it the right question, right? We're focused on maybe something that's a minor part of the issue, but missing in the bigger picture. So I always tell people that, never underestimate the power of a well-formed question, whether it's to help you kind of network with someone to find your way to that job, or in the job in terms of something that's like, I don't have a lot of idea on how to do this because like they didn't cover this in class. Ask the question. And what you'll do is you'll find your way to the pieces of the puzzle that you can then put together. And that kind of formula has never hurt me because I think the hard part about that is sometimes we're too shy or our lack of confidence keeps us from asking the question in situations. And I think that's one of the biggest things. And, I have 4 kids, all who I've kind of helped get through their education, including their college. And it's one of the things I instilled in them is it's like, learn how to talk to adults, learn how to ask good questions. Adults will stop and take the time to answer your questions and then just take the conversation where it needs to go. And then you're just a little better prepared for what's in front of you. And it really does work. And so there are lots of situations, usually when I say like something I could have, that didn't go the way I wanted, it's because maybe I didn't ask the question that I should have been asking.
Totally, I agree. Active listening, asking questions, and also like ultimately like reflecting upon it like afterwards is very important throughout this process. So,
And can I just add that one of the things I really appreciate about today's students is um, I don't think I learned the term active listening until I was maybe double your age. It wasn't something we were introduced to. I think the concept of self-reflection also was something we weren't introduced to. But today's students I find to be much more have the ability to be introspective on themselves, to kind of step back from situations, what went right, what went wrong, how did I feel? And there's nothing wrong with saying, how did I feel, right? Because I think, being true to oneself is something that we constantly search for. I really appreciate that today's students seem to be much more prepared for that. And I think the challenge that you'll find is the world sometimes can move so fast, or you're asked to move so fast in the world that you lose that reflectiveness. So I think it's important to have those mechanisms to be able to kind of step back, slow down, however you found your way to do it, so that you learn from situations. I can remember going like hard for very long periods of time and just feeling like I just never had a chance to absorb anything because I just went so hard to get the job done. And I remember talking to one of my managers about it, and he's like, "Yep, that's the challenge. Is sometimes you're so busy trying to do, you don't get a chance to step back and say to yourself, what did you learn from it?" And something I think is you all are so much better at your age than I was at your age.
yeah, I agree because like um we live in a very like a really busy world nowadays where there's so many distractions. We're always like aiming to reach higher, go somewhere, you do something bigger, right? We forget the process of it, and we're always just trying to like arrive at the end goal. But yeah, I think it's important to like pause for a moment and really process and reflect on how you feel, how everything's going. So now I would like to kind of shift into like the Zot GPT related questions if you're comfortable with that.
Sure.
So we want to ask, how did you and your team kind of come up with the idea for Chat GPT? And it kind of sounds like you're plagiarizing Chat GPT.
Well, there's this thing called brand that's really important. I'll give you kind of a little bit of 2 answers on this. And one is from my own history. So you all don't know this world, but so you just have to trust me on it. There was a time when two people might be sitting having a cup of coffee or eating a meal, someone saying, "Hey, have you played with the internet?" And the other person would say, "No, never heard of it. That sounds crazy. Hey, have you done a Google search?" "No." What's Google? That sounds nuts to you, but there was a time, and I was not much older than you when that world existed. And I was fortunate enough to kind of be in that world very early. And a couple of things happened. One is opportunity came because that was the new world that we are all walking towards, even though we didn't understand what it was going to mean. But there was opportunity there by being there early. And my career benefited from being inside that madness. So when ChatGPT hit the world, I immediately recognized it, as very similar to what happened when Netscape, the first internet browser, was introduced, and we saw the internet through something we can understand. We saw a new tool. Don't call it AI. We saw a new tool that allowed us to leverage our intelligence, our creativity in a different way. And I said to our team, we need to jump on this now and go big in our thinking about what it could mean, not just to how we run the university or how things work in classes or how research in the lab use it, but our students, their careers are going to be transformed through these tools. Just in the same way, before Google came, the only way you got information was to walk or ride your bike to the library and look in books to find things, which is a ridiculous concept to think about, that like that's how you had to do your work. This type of leap forward was something that I saw. And so we jumped on it and we said, we need to create something that, one, allows us to take advantage of that. But, we get our university with a very diverse set of students, and we saw very early that some students who could afford to have a subscription were getting access to really good tools, and those who couldn't were having lesser tools. And that was something that was unacceptable to us. So we need to create something that put everyone on a common playing field. The second part about ZotGPT that was really, and is still really important, is people have their concerns, and they're very valid concerns about things like security, privacy of the information that I put in there. And so ZotGPT was designed such that the analogy that I use, it's like, we put a fence around our backyard, and anything you do in the backyard stays in the backyard. You're right. The ball doesn't roll out into the street because the wall stops it. Now, it does limit what you can do with the tools, but it gives people a safe playground to experiment with these tools, get comfortable with them and what they might be able to do with them. That was really important to go just want to jump in. And that's a subset of the population, but a larger set saying, but wait a minute, before I jump in, is it safe? And a lot of people said, I'm concerned it's not safe. I hear these stories. I hear that if I do this, I'm giving my information to these very large tech companies that I've been taught not to trust. So how do we overcome that? We gave people a backyard. And that's where ZotGPT has started for us. What we've seen is we've introduced it. We have people of all types, some people who are running forward at all sorts of speeds with this, and some people who are just dipping their toe. For all people, it's good because even the toe dip is a step in a direction towards the future that we're all going to be living in. And so that was kind of the thinking and kind of where we're at. And what we keep doing now is trying to get more people to use these tools, use our listening posts to figure out what people like, what people think is missing, what kind of use cases or like examples they'd like to use it for other things. It's like, hey, why is there not an interface that I can put my research data into this and actually start doing analysis with it? Hey, it's a great idea. We should have had one of those. So we put it on the list of things to do. So that's kind of how we've been thinking about it. Get started, get going, listen a lot, figure out the path.
I feel like nowadays a lot of students, they really just take advantage of the fact that, wow, technology is so advanced and we have all these like tools, but we don't really get to hear the backside and like the story behind it. So I really appreciate that. And I appreciate what the team is doing. It's definitely made a huge impact for students. And this leads us to our next question. What are the biggest challenges universities face in integrating AI into their curriculum while ensuring students develop both technical skills and critical thinking about AI's societal impact?
Yeah, that is first of all, it is a tough question. And it's an important question. It's both, tough and important. And here's why. We can make these tools available to you. And some of your instructors will say, that's great. I'm glad you're using this. And others will say, do not bring that anywhere near my class or I will fail you. That's a hard thing, right? We can't force them to say yes to allowing you to use the tool. So part of bringing it to UC Irvine is to also work with the faculty. Like I was sitting with faculty last Friday, just talking about some of these issues. The second thing is, and we are having, and we continue to have a lot of discussions around this. It's like, okay, we understand this is going to be a huge part of our future, in our work lives, in our personal lives, and how we interact with each other. You ask me, this is going to change completely the way that we interface with technology, right? I mean, we're not going to be, hitting, our screens with thumbs anymore. We're going to be talking to things, and maybe not even holding a device to do it. I mean, it's really going to change. But really importantly, if you've played with these tools, is we have to use the time we have you here at the university to understand how to use them responsibly, ethically, and equitably. And I've again started this as a question: is what is our responsibility around the use of AI here with respect to our students? Those three words consistently came back from, your instructors, your advisors, the leadership at the campus, is because, it's instilling a set of values around the use of these tools that's really important that you'll carry into your life. If we don't do that, then you're going to learn it out there after you leave here, which we're not as comfortable that it's the type of learning environment, because the reality is these tools can be used in very positive ways. They also can be used in very negative ways, as we've already seen. So where do we instill a sense of using them in the proper way, in the proper context? Well, my point of view has been to our instructors and our faculty members is we have an opportunity to create the conversation for that here. And so we hope that your instructors are not saying, yeah, use it, no, don't use it, but let's talk about how we're using it. Let's talk about if the answers we get out of it have implicit biases associated, and why might they have, right? That's a really important conversation that I'm hoping that we're having, here at the university, whether it's in the classroom or maybe in, your student clubs, wherever it might be, because it's important, right? It is very important.
Yeah, we have a lot of faculty. I know I have a lot of professors. Do you have professors who are like talking about using like GPT as like a resource as
I
well?
do actually. We shouldn't limit students from it. There's no way to like prevent students from using it. So might as well like encourage students to use it, but use it in a ethical like manner. And so I think that is a good point.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those things that it's going to be a part of your future in ways that we don't even understand yet,
Yeah.
right? And I can understand also where, let's say, an instructor, let's say you're an English instructor, and you worry about people will not understand the basics of how to be a good writer because they'll depend so much on these tools that they won't use their own voice, right? They'll just use it to create something without instilling their sense of self and understanding, and so I get how some things become easier. But as we've seen with the introduction of any new technology, it's not that things change, it's just that they move.
Yeah.
It's the silly example I like to use is like when the calculator came along, most of the people in the sciences and engineering said we can't allow our students to use calculators. They won't understand math and bridges will fall down, is the famous statement. Well, I don't know really that the bridges fell down just because we allowed students to use calculators, all right? Or then we allowed them to use software to do computer-aided design of bridges, right? What happened was certain problems got solved for you, but then you moved on to more complex problems. And I think writing is one that really, really generates a lot of debate right now, which is like, will we lose the ability for people to know how to write, to critically think through problems if we allow too much reliance on these tools? And it's a really fair statement. And my point is, we have to teach them how to use it in the right way. That's the
Right.
only way we can help our students today. So we'll see. It's the grand experiment of our day.
I would like to wrap this up with a silly AI question for you. So, if AI could grant you one wish, but it had to be something completely random, what would you ask for?
It's got to be completely random.
Yeah, up to your
Oh,
interpretation of that question.
okay. I can tell you the first thing that popped into my head,
Yeah.
um, which is I'd like to be able to eat as much chocolate as I can without getting sick. I don't
Like,
think AI can help me with that, um, until it like designs a different type of chocolate that still tastes like chocolate but doesn't have the negative health effects of chocolate. But that was where my brain went for the first, kind of semi-random thing to do.
It's sounding like you want AI to make you a Willy Wonka.
Something like that. Yes. There's a famous movie from a very, very long time ago where a gentleman falls asleep. He wakes up 200 hours later. And in the future, they've learned that things like chocolate cake and fried chicken are actually good for you. And I'm like, that's the world that I want to wake up in.
Maybe in the future, we never know. Well, to close this up, thank you so much for being here today with us. For students at UCI who are eager to make an impact in the world of AI, would you um what would be your final piece of advice or encouragement?
Yeah. So first of all, is open your minds to learn. Um, I think you all are coming into the world at one of the most, if not the most interesting time. Uh, Certainly, I look back at like when I came into my school, into my career, there were a lot of exciting things going on. I think today's world, while crazier in some ways and having higher levels of uncertainty, I think also has more opportunity than any other time. And so, one, I hope students today are hopeful and looking forward to the future rather than dreading it. The second thing is think of these things as just tools. I mean, they're just tools that you have to figure out how they'll help you do whatever it is that you're going to do, and that the creativity, right? There's a famous saying from Einstein. He once said, creativity is more important than knowledge. And it's a really, really interesting statement if you think about the world today. These tools have allowed us to kind of encapsulate knowledge and bring it down to a prompt in terms of being able to get access to the world's knowledge. But the creativity of what to do with that prompt and the problem you might solve or the person you might help is, I think, the opportunity of your generation as you finish your time with us and go out into the world and figure out how you're going to make your mark. And so, my hope for our students is that you're really hopeful and excited about that opportunity and that you grasp it in the way that people before you have.
That's all for today. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me, and good luck with the rest of the quarter.
Thank you.